Welcome, everybody, to Deep Dive, presented by ThreatGEN. Deep Dive is a 30-minute weekly cybersecurity live stream show. I'm Gerald Auger, joined by Clint Bodungen, and we are bringing senior industry expertise to provide a deeper analysis and understanding of one specific cybersecurity event. We encourage you to ask questions or lend your opinion as we take this deep dive together. If you're interested in this type of content, hit like and subscribe to show your support and to be made aware when new content drops weekly. Now let's get into this week's topic. Hey, Clint, how are you, man?
It's been a week, but I'm here.
Excellent. So if you are a regular attendee of the Simply Cyber's daily cyber threat brief, this story may look a little bit familiar, but it piqued Clint and I's interest enough for us to want to go a little bit deeper and explore some of the complexities and nuances of it. So if you were not paying attention, the U.S. federal government has issued an advisory. It's a joint advisory between the Department of Treasury, the Department of State, and the Department of Justice under the FBI of North Korean actors posing as freelancers to aid the North Korean Republic government in essentially what will amount to financial aid. Now, I'm going to just kind of lay out what the actual mission or their operation looks like as far as the U.S. government has made us aware, and then we'll talk into how this is actually being practiced in other avenues and shortcomings, and then how you might what the expectation is of defense on this. And I have some real spicy thoughts around the advisory's pushing of ownership on preventing this stuff. So you're looking at a flow chart right here. And essentially what happens is a North Korean IT worker who, by the way, North Korea has heavily invested in universities and education programs in North Korea for IT specific curriculum, right? So they're pumping out tons and tons of IT savvy individuals that are, for the North Korean government, want to do things to sponsor the North Korean government. So they have the education and knowledge, which is critical because they are going out into market and getting jobs as freelancers. Think of gig economy or Upwork or any of these things where I can be a graphic designer, or I can be a web designer, or I can help you, do data analysis or data aggregation or whatever it is, software development, software review. And the North Korean worker, mind you, it can't be working out of North Korea because there are economic sanctions in place for businesses to do business with North Korea. So if you are, a Ford Motor Company or something like that, you cannot hire North Korean staff to work, or you can't hire the North Korean government to work with you, right? Basically. So these individuals are getting proxy accounts. They're either buying existing accounts, which enters a whole new avenue of concerns and questions on who is selling their own gig economy account and what that price would be, or they are stealing someone's gig economy account, or they're creating a fraudulent one with stolen information. Think of identity theft, essentially. And as they get that, they are then able to submit to these platforms, these freelance platforms like, Fiverr or Upwork, saying, hey, I can do this service. I can help you out. They end up getting a client, and they do the work because they have it. So they are legitimately doing the work, and they get paid. Two things are happening here. One, they are able to leverage the money that they're making, and they're getting paid quite well because they're doing very advanced technology work, $300,000, say. They're able to take that, and the expectation is, or the U.S. government is reporting, that 90% of that revenue goes back to the North Korean government to fund their government initiatives, whether it's military, domestic, whatever. 90% is what goes back, and then 10% is for you to live on. Also, when you're giving, like, just to make it up, right? Ford Motor Company hires someone to develop like a one-off website or some marketing initiative they're doing for their new low emission vehicle. The staff get access to resources. They might even get access to sensitive information under the auspices that they're there to do work Ford or whoever, because they have that access, they're able to exfiltrate that data and commit essentially what would be considered espionage, which can further help North Korean regime by either selling it on the dark web, leveraging it for internal use, whatever it is. There's kind of a multi-pronged value for this particular operation. Now, obviously, the final thing I'll say before I ask Clint for his thoughts on this is that this model, there's a couple situations going on here. One, you're getting around, you're circumscribing,
Circumventing.
circumventing. Thank you, Clint. You're circumventing economic sanctions, first of all. Second of all, you may be funding this government without your awareness or knowledge, and it conflicts with like your internal corporate policies and principles. It could be illegal. It gets into the advisory, which we'll get into later, that if you are employing these workers and you know it and you don't do something about it, like fire them or report it, then you could actually be held liable and your company could be held in trouble as well. So there's a lot of kind of potential victims here: exfiltration of data and violating economic sanctions. And then all the while, tens of thousands, it's predicted or speculated, of these essentially illicit workers are operating on these freelance work platforms. So that's the gist of what's going on here, but there's a lot to unpack. So let's bring Clint up here. Clint, as far as this particular operation goes, what are your initial thoughts as we kind of unpack this story?
First of all, I turned my hat backwards too, so you didn't feel weird.
Nice. No, it's cool. We're Friday. It's late Friday afternoon.
Oh, I'm just gonna take my shirt off then. Like the beach, it's 110 degrees in my studio right now in Texas. Anyway, so the first thing I'm gonna say is, and get the spicy button ready, because if you are a large employer and you are looking to outsource services as opposed to looking for legitimate talent domestically, wherever. Now, look, no offense to any of you that are in other countries and using, Fiverr and these services for work, and no offense to smaller businesses or people that need something quick and short and everything like that. But if you are a large organization and you are purposefully outsourcing your services, your need, you outsourcing your tech needs and things like that to save money, or if you're looking for lower quality talent and going to outsourcing services where this would really be kind of a target where these Korean workers are targeting to go work and sign up. If you are a company that outsources to try to save money instead of looking for quality talent, you get what you deserve. I'm happy that you get hacked and taken over, and I'm happy that you're getting your data exfiltrated, and I'm happy that you're getting owned, because there's one thing to save money, and there's another thing to just do it to cut. If you have domestic workers and you're cutting costs, so I'm just going to say you get what you deserve, and I'm happy for you. Now let's go to the people who are legitimately victims. Or I'm not happy for you. I'm happy it's happening to you. That's what I meant to say. But now let's talk about legitimate victims. So this is a technique, and this sort of thing, it doesn't surprise me that North Korea is just now catching on to this tactic, because this is a tactic that has, the Russians used this in the 80s. This was called the illegals program, where they would have people move into countries like Canada and Mexico, and they would find a way to get in illegally and then take over an identity. This is true stories here. This is documented, and this isn't just Tinker Tailor spy stuff, but this is reality. And they would take over someone's identity in the workforce and then spy and things like that. Same concept, but this is now just in the digital age. And I'm quite frankly, I'm surprised that North Korea is just now doing this and catching on, or somebody's just now catching on to it. I mean, these are techniques that we did whenever I was red teaming, and there was a part of my career to where I was a true red team specialist, not a penetration tester, but a red teamer, to where you're pulling out all the stops, social engineering, deep red teaming tactics that go on for months, 6 months, a year. And so these are techniques that we were using. And here's what I found: it's extremely easy. You go in for an interview, you get a job, and then you're on the inside. I would say that this is one of those tactics that, in addition to spear phishing and social engineering email campaigns, this is one of those things that has a very high success rate. Probably the only reason why adversaries don't use it more often is because of the setup, the logistics involved, and especially if you're going to go on site. But now that we have these services like Fiverr, now that we have the ability to do it digitally, I mean, I personally think that this sort of thing is the next wave. This is the next new thing on infiltrating companies and networks and things like that. So anyway, that's kind of my overview. And then as we go, if you want more details or anything like that, but that's where I stand on it. That's kind of the overview of how I feel about, where it came from, why it's happening. But it's extremely easy, and companies are not prepared for this sort of thing.
Yeah. And you'll want to note too that there is a heavy cost in setup of this particular attack, right? It costs like almost nothing to do a phishing attack.
Yep.
It costs a lot to get an identity that can pass whatever background checks are needed here. You have to have the ability potentially to receive financials or payment. I know some of these platforms like Upwork, for example, they handle the transaction. One of the key things that the advisory points out is that and this is questionable, but they said one of the things to look out for is if the freelancer insists on being paid in virtual currency only. So, to me, like if you're asking for virtual currency, that does not make you a North Korean espionage freelancer,
Yeah.
especially in this decentralized market with crypto is super hot right now. So, but they can't really get a bank account a normal way, or they'd have to get one in like a country that doesn't have the sanctions with the United States and then basically relay it over. But one of the important distinctions between what you were talking about with the Russians kind of during the Cold War and like basically the Black Widow movie, if you will, right? The key difference here is that one of the main goals, while espionage is happening, one of the main goals, if not the main goal, from what I can tell from the FBI advisory, is that this is to fund North Koreans. Specifically, it is going into other parts of the program, but really to fund their ballistic missile program. Ever since their economic sanctions have like basically hindered them. And if you think North Korea, as far as I know, they don't really have any exports per se that has high value. So they are left to do things like Lazarus Group and trying to do like the Bangladeshi bank heist and steal $1 billion. They depend on these kind of abnormal revenue streams in order to fund their government, literally. And as I said, they've got tens of thousands of, it's reported tens of thousands of these staffers in freelance positions making, let's just say they all make $100,000. So combined, it's $100 million, right? 90% of that is going to the North Korean government. So $90 million, and it's probably higher than that. So you basically have an entire army of IT people whose entire focus is to work their butt off in order to generate revenue to send it back to the homeland. Now, I would bet you a bunch of them are not getting access to super sensitive data, because when I hire a freelancer to do something like design Simply Cyber logo or, do something, it's almost implied that they are an outside entity doing something. And I've turned my radar way up to be mindful that I don't know these people. And there's a trust issue, frankly. So my expectation that the level of espionage is not super high, but obviously we get into these situations where large groups like, let's say, Booz Allen wins a huge contract. Then they sub it out to smaller businesses, certain parts of it. Those smaller businesses are small businesses. So maybe like, let's say 10, 15 employees, and maybe they overshot their shot and they bid on work, or they bid on multiple projects thinking they were going to get one or two and they won six. And now they can't scale up fast enough. It's not unrealistic because of kind of the supply chain of economics, or of employee workforce, for the small to sub out to a freelancer and, do their due diligence as best they can. And now it rolls up, and now you've got someone who's kind of a compromised asset operating on a potentially more sensitive project. So I could see it happening that way, and that's a major concern of mine. But the main focus, from what I can tell, is around generating revenue for the homeland.
So if you want to unpack it from that perspective, and yeah, and I've seen reports of both, right? I've seen reports of they are using this tactic for infiltration and data exfiltration. So I've seen that report. But then from your angle, from the one you just mentioned, what's sad is that, if they're using an entire army to go out and do legitimate work, the only real victim here are the workers. Because if this particular case, if they're not being sent in for espionage or industrial espionage or data theft, then on the side of the purchaser, there's no crime, there's no victim. It's basically they're getting a service and someone's doing the work. The people, and
Yep.
looks like my restream is
Yeah,
going
you're
off.
a little flaky right now. Keep going, and if you clip out, I'll take over.
Oh, I'll flip out. All right. Anyway, no, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's happening, but yeah, it looked like a little bit of an internet blip there. I mean, I'm on a wired connection and everything, so I don't know why that happened. But anyway, I froze a little. Anyway, that was just me acting. But yeah, I think the only real victim here is the workers. And let's just say, I'm not surprised that North Korea is doing that to their people. I mean, North Korea is obviously brutal to their people. That's the hermit kingdom for a reason. And should we expect anything less?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you said something that, when I went a little deeper on this story, potentially introduces some concerns and some issues. So you said if they're doing legitimate work, like developing the ThreatGEN logo, the only real victim is the North Korean citizen, because they're being exploited effectively to work for next to nothing. Well, in the FBI advisory that I investigated, you could see here, and let me back it up a little. Oh, hold on, I'm changing this. I'll drop the link in chat in a second, but I want to show you something that just really caused me to get a little nauseous. Like, and this is a really well put together advisory.
Driscoll, James Driscoll said about my freeze. It was North Korea. They know we're talking about them.
Exactly. We're being DOSed. We're being bounced off Friendster. So they so here in the advisory, you can see they point out, here are the consequences of engaging in prohibited sanctionable content. Individuals or entities engaged in supporting these worker related activities, including processing related financials, could face potential legal consequences under the UN Security Council resolution, yada, yada, yada. The Department of Treasury is involved around the foreign assets control, has the authority to impose financial sanctions on any person determined to have engaged in significant activities. Those are the individuals. Hold on.
Yeah. So, why are you reading
what
that?
I'm trying to get is, yeah, you see what I'm trying to get, right? Like,
Yeah,
you could accidentally be hiring these people and screwing yourself.
Yeah, but I'll call BS on that, because, and the reason why is because, not everybody, and I'm going to say probably, I'm throwing this number out there, 67.8% of statistics are made up on the spot. But so I'm going to say, 90% or more of the companies out there not only aren't going to do like this hardcore, deep background checks on
Well, that's the
people
thing.
from
They're not going
Fiverr.
to.
You can't, though. You can't. So according to these reports, they're actually using fake identities. They're going through things. They're doing things that are going to hide their identity or hide the fact that they're not legitimately from a non-sanctioned country. So most companies, even big, large companies, don't have the types of resources to do the deep analysis and background checks that are going to expose this thing. So it's absolutely BS. And I wish I could say that is a BS. I wish I could say the real word, FBI threat, and saying, and because people that are going to hire these workers unknowingly, unwittingly, aren't going to be able to uncover the fact that they're using subterfuge and obfuscation of their identity and everything like that. So you can't hold the people who hire these services responsible for that, or hold them liable for that. Or what's going to happen is, if this becomes a big enough thing, you're going to shut down services like Fiverr. You're going to shut down those because people are going to stop using them for fear of liability. And you're going to destroy an entire workforce. You're going to destroy an entire marketplace from underserved, lower income, countries like the Philippines, and even though it's known cyber terrorism and it comes out of there, but I mean, so you're going to disrupt the economy or the workforce from underserved countries where people and citizens, good workers from those countries, could normally never get good paying jobs, but because of services like Fiverr and these other online services provide an opportunity for those types of people to get work. It's going to kill that if you have stupid BS threats like this from the FBI that could potentially scare companies from wanting to hire those services. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox and hit the spicy button again, because that pisses me off.
Yeah. So listen, in the advisory, and I agree with you 100%. When I was reading this, I was like, oh my goodness, like you will destroy these gig economies. I don't know if you can see it really well on the thread. I mean, on chat. If you guys need it, I'll make it full screen. But they want you like to look, if you're these platforms, like, or if you're a like the platform just connects you, like on Fiverr, like it connects me as a freelancer with Clint as an employer, right? To look for multiple logins to one account from various IP addresses. So you have to have you'd have to have network packet capture and map it into your identity and access management program, which is, I mean, not program, but your infrastructure, which is not easy and not cheap. Developers logging into multiple accounts on the same platform from one IP address. Like, again, you'd have to have that same kind of check. Router, port, or other technical configs associated with, remote desktop, and make sure, that the software is using standard company practices. Like, some of these things are best practices for information security, but it's unrealistic to require these things. And they're so vague. Like I said before, like if someone asks to be paid with Bitcoin, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean one way or the other that they're more likely to be one of these agents or not. Right. So, companies employing freelance developers. So like a customer of a Fiverr or a Upwork needs to be aware of the following indications too: inconsistencies in spelling, surprisingly simple portfolio websites. Like,
have you seen the millennials coming out of college these days? It's all inconsistent spelling.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I get that the FBI and the Department of Treasury has, probably high confidence intel that this is happening and they want to do something about it. But it is such a difficult problem to try to solve because of the decentralized workforce and the idea of the gig economy, which is wildly popular in the United States. I'm not sure where it is. Yes, Chris Weaver. By the way, Chris Weaver, I just see him in chat. Chris drops like really good, well thought out, researched comments on Simply Cyber YouTube videos. So Chris, I wanted to say thank you. I appreciate that you do that. It does say knowingly, but it does say knowingly engage and knowingly allows. And I agree that that would be an important consideration because you can always plead ignorance. But I mean, they're telling you to do these things to validate and check and do background checks and look for these kind of red flag indicators. Yeah. But you can't do that. So to me, it almost incentivizes you to stick your head in the sand because you don't want to uncover these things because of what it means when you do, when you do encounter it. So I don't know.
Blurry finger to that. Blurry finger to that. Fight the system.
Yeah, exactly. So to your point, one other thing, as if this is so funny. There's two ways to get what you want, right? And I'm oversimplifying it, but there's two ways to get what you want in anything, whether you're a person trying to get something from a person or a government trying to get something from another government. There's the stick and there's the carrot. You can threaten someone with sanctions and punishment if they don't do it, or you can incentivize them with carrots and rewards and benefits if they do it. And, they're both levers that work very similarly, but they affect people differently. So all of this FBI stick that Clint just lost his mind about is one thing, but then literally in the same advisory, if you dig in, there's a rewards for justice program put on by the Department of Justice or the Department of State.
It's using $5
million. What?
They're using a carrot that they're going to hit you with like a stick. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically like in the thing, it says, if you do any of these things, you could receive up to $250,000 in potential forfeiture of your property. By the way, if you have information about these activities, please contact us for a $5 million reward. And they go into greater things than just, it looks like the North Korean labors is just one aspect of what the Department of State is interested in kind of tracking on North Korean activity. They even have a separate section for cyber operations, which is not surprising considering Lazarus Group's efficacy the last, 6-7 years. So, oh, I'm sorry, Chris. I couldn't see your graphic, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Chris. She has excellent commentary, and I really love it. I actually read every comment that she puts. Sorry, Chris.
That's it. We're gonna get shut down.
No. So, anyways, to pull it all back, because we are getting close to 4:00 where I have to jump over to Simply Cyber for radar. Clint, final thoughts. I know these weekly these weekly deep dives do go rapidly fast, but with the North Korean freelance workers, final thoughts.
Yeah, number one, if you're a big person, if you're a big organization outsourcing, then you get what you deserve. If you're legitimately needing these services, then don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of this FBI advisory. I say. I mean, I would say, you can't. This is a BS advisory. I don't see it being enforceable. Don't be afraid to hire the talent that you need. That's what I'm saying. And I feel really sorry for the North Korea workers that are being exploited this way, because it's not the people of North Korea, it's the government. So feel sorry for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Deep Dive. Again, thank you for being with us. I know it runs wicked fast. This has been Deep Dive with myself, Gerald Auger, and Clint Bodungen. We hope that you got value out of this. And if you did, hit that like and subscribe button to show your support. We are, it helps us get other people to find us, and it tells us that you like this particular show format and that you want more of it. Join us next week at 3:30 p.m. for the next episode of Deep Dive. I teased it earlier, but if you'd like to keep the party going, I encourage you to jump over to Simply Cyber on YouTube, where I'll be hosting the 4:00 show. What's on your What's on your radar? What's on your radar? Another cybersecurity theme live stream. All the best, folks. What are you doing?
I'm trying to point to you, but I'm looking at a different screen.
All right, guys, run over to Simply Cyber. We'll see you over there in a few minutes. Thanks, and until next time, stay secure, everyone.